I'm Mark Unger, producer of Roundtable. Because we find this presentation so special, we really would like for you to see this. Please watch.
Good evening, and welcome to Single Shot at Manhattan Neighborhood Networks Roundtable. Tonight we're going to be discussing with our anonymous expert again the very peculiar question. Several times in the past couple of months I was working in one way or another in the question of artists being asked to pay for participation in exhibitions. And I happen to personally believe that this practice is in a way unfair for the artists, and a lot of other photographers and visual artists from all different medias also sharing this belief. And as a result, often they missing the opportunity to expose the art if they make it to be a matter of principle. So our anonymous experts actually have a completely different approach, different view and understanding of this phenomena. So we met today to discuss how the financials should be working in this respect between gallery and the artist, and whether it's justified or not. So let's see if we will find some common ground and some realization. Hello, and thank you for joining us again.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, so basically you've heard my introduction, and the idea is I do sincerely believe that it's a matter of principle for a good artist to exhibit in places that believe enough in his art to share with him the risks associated with whether selling art or not. And that's essentially the general idea, but let's see what you have to say about it. Maybe there is something I don't know, and there is something we in general don't know about this principle that makes it different.
I have a lot of experience in examining this area and phenomenon of different models of galleries, especially in the last few years that have evolved, which are affected by economics. Mm-hmm. And also from the artist's point of view, I understand the ideal. The reality is totally different, and that's why you have disagreements today with artists that are frustrated and can't get what they want, and galleries that are going out of business because the old model doesn't work for many with rising expenses. I think the key question is to look into your question and help the audience understand what the market is about, what the opportunities could be about, and see if they could try to do something that is better for them rather than doing nothing. And that's the approach I try to take in analyzing and thinking of the market. Do something best you can for yourself as an artist. The reality today is that there's a total imbalance between the availability of galleries versus the number of photographers and other fine artists who would like the chance to exhibit. They live to create and have the work be seen. Online is an entirely different discussion because now more and more galleries are going online and artists have more opportunities directly to try to reach the public, and that could probably take another few hours, and we'll put that aside for now. The traditional gallery space and model is not new, it's been around forever, and let's focus on New York alone. It's a little bit different outside New York, but the same theory applies, where in order for a gallery traditionally to be able to help an artist, they have to survive. They have to pay their bills. If they don't survive, they go out of business. There's nothing to help the artist. To survive economically, they have expenses, they have investment, and they have to sell enough on a commission basis to pay their bills before they even consider, is there any left over to make a, not even a profit, but a salary to live on for the people that own or run the gallery. And that's what many artists just fail to see, that there's a balance. The artists themselves have their own issues, but the gallery is not responsible for what the artist does or did to create their own economic situation. They decided to go to school, they decided to invest their passion, their time, career to become an artist, and their money. And they exist on their own, and now they want to have a marriage. They want the gallery to use their resources to help them.
It's pretty heartless thing to say. Besides everything else, maybe you are right from economical point of view to a degree, but if you would look from the other perspective, we will see something completely different. That artist is not responsible for gallery struggle, and if one gallery closes,
They
Well,
want the gallery to use their resources to help them.
It's pretty heartless thing to say. Besides everything else, maybe you are right from economical point of view to a degree, but if you would look from the other perspective, we will see something completely different. That artist is not responsible for gallery struggle, and if one gallery closes, there would be another two opening. It happens all the time. Businesses are going out of business all the time, and on top of everything, we should really look into the nature of gallery as a business. It's not a shoe store. It's not grocery, daily grocery. It's a place that at least should pretend to be caring about art, not about making profit.
There are many assumptions you've made in that statement and the viewpoint.
And you've got to take it apart to see that there is no one overall same model of a gallery
Indeed.
or its position of an artist. You break it down into the kinds of galleries there are, and they have different purposes and different economics. The museum that runs like a gallery, or a gallery in a nonprofit institution like a college, is different. They don't have to worry about overhead, and they could take a higher road and curate. Then you have the other types. You have a pure vanity gallery, just rents out their space, and that has no respect in the collecting world, but many artists fall into it. You have the co-op model, where galleries share expenses. That's a different model. The traditional model that I think you're referring to is where an independent person on their own decides to represent the best artists they can to help make a market, to help the artist exhibit and sell, and hopefully have enough to pay its bills. The practical reality is that I disagree, and I think I can prove empirically numbers that what you said about when one gallery closes, another one exists. It's not true in New York, because in most cities, if it was true, then you or any other fine artist and photographer would be able to go into a gallery tomorrow and say, I'm here, I'm good, take me. That's not the reality. So the gallery, in order to exist, doesn't know what's going to sell. And that's one of the problems. If a gallery owner thinks they know what's going to sell, they're going to go out of business, because it's a gamble. There's so many factors beyond art being good. And whose opinion is it? You got to make it sell.
How is it fair to share and shift all the risk to the artist? Why? They both are in business. Artist creating something, gallery is...
How is it fair to share and shift all the risk to the artist? Why? They both are in business. Artist creating something, gallery is facilitating space and most often the crowd to buy it.
So let's
Why only one side of
This equation
It's
should
not-
be
it's not-
assuming
it's-
the risks.
I think you're assuming it's one side, but let's look on balance. And I think a benefit of the people listening is to understand and respect the other side. Now, I think it's simple enough for a gallery to know the position of the artist. We can make certain assumptions. The artist creates art. The artist wants to show the art. In most cases, the artist wants to sell the art, but not in every case. And that's their purpose, and can a gallery help them? The gallery has to decide which artist of so many available they decide to invest their time and their resources, because every artist they pick, they also have limited space. They can't do 1,000 artists fairly. They can't represent 100 artists fairly if they'll do that job. So they have to pick the best ones that fit their purpose and model and specialize. Are they photography? What kind of photography? Are they sculpture? And then make an independent decision as a business person to invest the money that no artist practically is willing to invest and can't. They can't go in and spend literally in the city $100,000 just to take a lease for a security deposit and then pay $10,000 to $20,000 a month rent and hire up staff before the owner of the gallery could even see a penny. And there are galleries that spend $1 million. They're rich and they do it as a plaything. Then there are serious galleries and they're going out of business because they're not selling fast enough. The model is changing. So while we can, as a position as a gallery owner, we feel for each artist, the practicality is different. And I could be very crude and paint a picture. There just aren't enough seats in a lifeboat to let everyone survive on a sinking ship. And that's the economics.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting that there should be no curation and gallery owners just stood on the street with a sign, any artist is welcome. I do believe that there should be rigorous
Don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting that there should be no curation and gallery owners just stood on the street with a sign, any artist is welcome. I do believe that there should be rigorous choosing of the artists for their purposes. The only thing I don't believe is fair is making those artists to assume the risks for having this exhibition instead of gallery owner to assuming any risk at all.
Well, let me turn it around and ask you the following question. If I, as a gallery owner, have 20 artists that I represent because I think I can do a fair job for 20 artists.
Okay.
I've selected them. And one retires, leaves, dies, whatever. And I have one vacancy. And I have a chance now to fill that spot with another artist that I invest my time, my risk, my energy, hoping it'll sell. And maybe if it sells, maybe I'll get a 50% commission traditionally or 40%. And I turn to you, Alex. Alex, fill that spot. You get what you want. What about the other 20,000 artists in line that also say they're good, they're deserving, they're important, they want the shot, and they don't get in because I only have one spot? Who do I give that spot to? If I give it to someone else, you'll say it's unfair to you. So
Yes.
in some pay, someone has to fill the spot, but every spot that's filled, and that's the inequality. The demand is so much greater than the supply that's one principle you have to understand. In Manhattan, you've got maybe 2,000 galleries. Let's exclude certain ones that are nonprofit or very, very high end for multi-million-dollar transactions. Maybe you've got 1,500, 1,600 galleries, and there are a few models in it that are different.
Okay.
So how many artists and photographers especially, of all those galleries,
Okay.
so how many artists and photographers especially, of all those galleries, very few specialize in photography. And that's the nature of your audience in the show, is photography. When you limit it to the ones that are photography, and you then take away the ones that are dealing with historical photography, the artists that have died, the big money artists, how many of them are dealing with living artists, contemporary photographers? Very, very few.
Alright.
So now you've got anyone with a camera that studies and takes photographs and puts their heart and passion into it and everything else, they want their opportunity to sell. The number of slots don't exist at all, and when I open up, it's impossible to say one, sorry, over better. It's like a lottery system. So are all the others being
Indeed it
treated
is.
unfairly? I don't think so, because that's just the
Well,
economics.
There is no ideal abstract fair in the world in general, but let's try to figure out what would be.
There is no ideal abstract fair in the world in general, but let's try to figure out what would be a fair approach to this after this break.
Well, I can tell you some solutions. And
Alright, we're back and we will continue discussion of how to approach fees for being in a gallery that recently started to be instilled on the artists. And probably it will be better if we will focus on different kinds of galleries and different business models they use. And indeed, it's a very complicated question, and I can say that you raised even more complicated and deeper question how the artist should be selected to begin with, but there is something else. Artist who is expected to pay and because of that being selected, in my opinion, actually hurts the gallery and in general art more than anything else.
so let's focus on your point about those galleries that exist today that can offer an artist a place to exhibit, and they're asking for money. And they're asking for money in different ways. So here's the reality. You have to break it down and say what they're doing and why, and how it may help and how it may hurt the artist.
Let's
and that's a
examine
very,
it.
very important question. And then what is the artist to do? Because there are some solutions and new models coming to the forefront, and other economic realities artists don't see, and you and I can play off each other to illustrate. So let's see if we have enough time. The first gallery model, where money comes into play, is the extreme of what's called a vanity gallery, where people pay to be seen. They have different kinds of facades. They're fancy, they're not. They've been around for many, many years, and they call up artists, like on a phone Boiler Bank, and they just keep calling. Oh, we love your art. We love your art. We can help you. Pay us to exhibit. There's a list of them. You can go online, type in Vanity Gallery, and you'll see a few advisors in the art field have made a list all over the country. It's very, very long, and there are many in New York. Some have switched their names, and people just pay. It's the equivalent to what I've seen. And here's a question for you. Is this any different for an artist when I've seen artists that believe in themselves and they want to show their work and they can't get into a gallery, which most cannot for economic reality, and they go and they rent a white box, they rent a space, and they have their own exhibit, and they invite their own friends and try to do their own PR, and they put up their own art, and there's no commission to share. And I know one artist I try to help, and he was new, self-taught, and he had a list of friends. He paid probably $8,000 to $10,000 for a 3-day use of space before even consider the cost of creating the art and framing it. Is that a vanity situation because he paid $10,000 to use a space? Or is that different than...
It is his choice, and that's exactly why he's not paying anybody's commission at the end of the day.
Well, forget the commission for a second, because if art doesn't sell, commissions are irrelevant. And if you go to some of these vanity galleries, they don't care about the commission. They make their money just on the fees they charge. There's some galleries that are charging between...
Or is that different than...
It is his choice, and that's exactly why he's not paying anybody's commission at the end of the day.
Well, forget the commission for a second, because if art doesn't sell, commissions are irrelevant. And if you go to some of these vanity galleries, they don't care about the commission. They make their money just on the fees they charge. There's some galleries that are charging between $3,000 and $20,000 to represent that they're going to market the artist, and you can tell they don't work for the artist by looking at to see which artists are there year after year. They're not. So therefore, that tells you a clue. If it worked for the artist, they'd stay there. That's one way to tell, is it really working and is it worth the money? I'm not saying all definitions of vanity gallery can be bad, but let's define common terms. So if an artist is paying, there are different ways they pay. One is you pay a vanity gallery. In your way of thinking, and most artists, that's bad. Let's assume it is, and I think it's bad because you don't get true value and you pay often more than you should with other choices, and it's not fairly represented. But you don't think that's bad, and you didn't criticize the artist who's themselves may be self-taught and risk his own money to rent from a landlord a space to do his own show. Why is one worse than the other? They're both spending money and no one is supporting them with their efforts to share expenses, and they're both taking the risk.
Well, I'm not saying that one of them is better than the other in terms of finances. It's probably also a poor decision to engage in something like this.
I'm not saying that one of them is better than the other in terms of finances. It's probably also a poor decision to engage in something like this. What I would say, though, that this is a decision of, I presume, responsible adult to use his money to invest in business he believes will work for him at his own volition. Another situation is somebody profiteering from somebody having high hopes for his business.
Well, let's go into the word profiteering, because as we go into different gallery models, you have to define the word profit. If a gallery can't exist, there is no profit. If they can't pay their bills, they can't exist. If the owner or owners of a gallery can't take out salary to live on, it doesn't exist. I wouldn't call that profit. I would call profit anything left over, and maybe it becomes excessive where they're successful and they take the risk. It's an entrepreneurial business, and many of them do not make it. Even after 30, 40 years, they're closing. So whether you feel for them or not, I don't have any sympathy necessarily. They chose to do that. We only want to focus, I think, on what's best for the artist and what are his choices fairly.
Sounds good.
So the one extreme is the pure vanity gallery model, which almost always the artist does not get the value they expect. And that's a different model. The other model that's common, and you think, most artists think it's okay to do this because they don't compare it, is the model of a co-op gallery.
I don't believe it's advantageable for the artist model, but
people don't put it in the same vein.
I don't believe it's advantageable for the artist model, but
people don't put it in the same vein, or same league as a vanity gallery. But in reality, what's different? In some cases, it's worse. The co-op model's been around for many years, and I give them some credit for taking initiative in their own hands. But the reality is this: the reason people need to form a co-op model is because they can't get into a regular gallery because the doors are closed to them. So now you say, what does this mean? There are models that exist for 20, 30, 40 years. There's only one or two that have been successful, and they're unique in how they started. And one happens to be in the photography field, started many decades ago. They still exist, but it was started by the very best photographers at the time, and they're around. The other models, I can tell you that some of these artists that are co-op, they say they're nonprofit, they all share expenses, they could charge as much as $3,000 or $4,000 a year, and the artist that participates doesn't become successful because of it. They take their turns showing. They take a long time, a year and a half. They have no marketing to speak of. They support each other by attending, but they're not buyers. Your family and friends come, and they don't buy anymore. It's just a chance to exhibit, and it's better than nothing because you want to exhibit and you can afford that money. Is that not a vanity model that you're paying yourself versus another gallery?
The way you put it, it definitely sounds very similar, but I would say that even with all the considerations you just mentioned, it's still a pretty good place for a young artist. The way you put it, it definitely sounds very similar, but I would say that even with all the considerations you just mentioned, it's still a pretty good place for a young artist to start if you have no other opportunities to
It's
exhibit.
not. You're wasting your money. It's a failure because they don't deliver what you want, except for ego. If you want the ego, and by the way, the person that pays $10,000 for their own exhibit, they may not do it for the money, for the sales. They can afford the money. They're all different economics. And I had an artist that paid thousands. He wanted the experience. He didn't care about selling from overseas. He wanted to be in New York, and he thought it'd be exciting. I found out afterwards, which upset me because I could have put another artist in where it would have made a difference for his career to be serious about it. So the artist that puts, the young artist has even a harder time economically with debts to pay, student loans. He has to be more careful with his money, and he thinks a co-op model is going to help him. He should study it further and say, who has it helped before? What are my goals? If my goal is to sell, will they market for me? Typically, not effectively. They don't know how to do it, and they don't have the budget for it. Will they bring new buyers? Look, see who's working. The few artists that sell, that are members of co-op gallery, would do so on their own anyway because they know how to develop clients. The art may be strong and good, and they can use the gallery physical space every year and a half to have a place to display the art. And they're not common. So the artists that are there, they're educated, they're self-taught, they're all kinds, and the curation, they tell you, is good. Look at it closely and decide if the curation is good. Because what most artists fail to see is when I have a chance to exhibit in any gallery, who are the other people I'm exhibiting with? I'm judged by the quality of who I'm with. If those are very, very poor artists compared to the level I'm at, it brings me down. And they look also, is that artist a high enough level and bring us down? And many co-op galleries have to exist, and they compromise, and they don't have a very, very high
Let's
standard.
explore the question of curation after this break. We'll have a few minutes. Let's explore the question of curation after this break. We'll have a few minutes.
Today in Single Shot, I'm going to tell you how to make a makeshift pinhole camera. It's actually very simple. All you need is a business card. I'm gonna use mine, but you can use any. You need to apply 2 pieces of duct tape on it, just like this, so they will be overlapping each other. And right in the middle of the card, from the inside, pierce a small hole. The smaller and rounder it is, the better will be your result. And put this contraption right on the camera, so the hole is right in the middle of the lens space. Then point it at what you would like to take a picture of, put the camera on delay, and take the shot. Voila! You have your pinhole camera shot. Thank you, and watch us on YouTube. Alrighty, we have a few minutes left, and we promised to say a couple of words about curation.
Years ago, many, many years ago, many decades, I had my first gallery, and I filled it with different kinds of art that were decorative and collectible, limited editions and posters for the market it was in. And I had professional selling and framers, and I waited to see the results. And I looked at the results, and I saw what was selling, and I was, surprised. What I thought were classic names, well-known museum artists that had either limited editions or posters, were not the most popular items. The most popular items in that particular location were decor, were people that were buying framed works of art, whether even a poster could be beautiful and expensive sometimes, collector items. They were buying it for color and to match where they were going. And I had to survive. I had to pay the bills, see what I put up there. For every wall space I had a choice. If I put up something that doesn't sell, then I'm out of business. So I quickly became a business person and changed my definition of good art. I was arrogant at first, and I thought good art was recognized by museums, the artist's stature. The survivalist mentality made me say, if it sells, it's good art, meaning I have to survive first to give the other artists a chance to exhibit, or they have no chance to exhibit, whoever I put in there, and I'm not there to exist. So existentialist, first is survival. Today my motto is, if I want to help an artist, there are two words, survive and thrive. That applies to the gallery and applies to the artist. If you don't survive, you can't thrive. Once you survive and pay your bills, however way you do it, and the gallery is their issues, artist has his issues, then you can try to thrive and do better and better. So survive and thrive applies to both. Unfortunately, realistically, if the gallery's out of business, their economic life is dead. The artist, it doesn't apply. They're doing what they would have done anyway, hoping to be in a gallery, wanting to take advantage as they should, and doing their best to sell. And if the gallery doesn't sell for them, it doesn't change their other lifestyle that they somehow managed to adapt, and they're not out of business. They're doing what they did before. The gallery is the one that is at risk for very, very big money in New York.
I think you have a little bit of a stretch in this rationale. You're comparing a person to an entity. An
There's an
artist
economic
is a
reality to
person,
both.
a gallery owner or whoever lives of this gallery are people. And they can be out of money just as well as artists. The survival of the entity is really relevant.
I'm viewing the entity as the entrepreneur.
You're comparing a person to an entity. An
There's an
artist
economic
is a
reality to
person,
both.
a gallery owner or whoever lives of this gallery are people. And they can be out of money just as well as artists. The survival of the entity is really relevant.
I'm viewing the entity as the entrepreneurs that put up the money and the equity. It doesn't matter what form it takes. It's still the gallery and the artist and the conflict they have economically, but really they're in the same boat if they're going to work together. Both want to sell. The artist hopes to sell. The gallery takes a chance and will sell because the artist only cares about themselves as they should. They are egocentric as they should. The gallery has an opportunity cost that the artist doesn't have. If I take you, I'm turning away 1,000 other choices. Do I really know which one's going to sell? Now before the break, you said a very important thing, that the gallery, or during the break, should look at, or can look at, which artist do I take? What is the history of the artist? Has he sold before? In what market? And I look at it very closely, and it's not easy to say, especially in the new market. The artist that has sold before in a similar market is in a stronger position to get the gallery attention, to at least for the survival mode. Now, many galleries are taking a chance on new young artists, and that's great and that's wonderful after they know their bills are paid, and that's a luxury they have.
I hope you found that worth watching as much as I.
I hope you found that worth watching as much as I did. I'm Mark Unger for Roundtable. Thanks for watching.